Hello everyone, it's me, Pomegraphite again. This time with my microphone facing the right direction so that I'm not speaking into its butt. Today I'm going through and drawing one of my OCs, Simone, and her familiar, Shadow. Though I suppose that OC is kind of a generous term since at this point, she's essentially just a character design, since I haven't worked out much in the way of backstory or information outside of her overall look. Partially my goal in drawing her was to try to figure out a bit more information on what sort of character she should be, since at this point, I more or less have her as just sort of a witch OC, who for one reason or another does not have arms, and who has a familiar who can take different forms, including taking the place of the arms that she does not have. In this illustration, I do have her with multiple sets of arms, with the idea that Shadow would be able to replace the arms that she doesn't have. In addition to that, he is able to replicate himself, although I haven't quite decided whether or not they would be very functional or would mainly be for reconnaissance or just looking at things, or just having a big fun murder of crows hanging out together. In this illustration, the additional arms also gives me a chance to kind of practice on painting skin a bit more, since I am trying to get a bit more into doing semi-realistic skin, instead of just opting for doing more of a cel-shaded sort of shading technique. Not that there's anything wrong with cel shading, I just kind of want to expand my knowledge of different techniques and everything, especially since I've been feeling a bit stuck with art for a while. In fact, I've been stuck on this drawing for quite a while. I kept on wanting to try to get it just right, but came to the conclusion that it's better to just get it to a sort of stopping point, or came to the conclusion that I should really just get to a reasonable state of completion and move on so that I would be able to try to explore other things that I want to draw. Since it's not exactly helpful to sit there trying to perfect the same thing for months on end, even if it's not for long periods of time, sometimes it's better to just wipe your hands of it and move on. That way it's not something on your mind distracting you from other projects. I originally really liked the sort of flat coloring I did with her hair and what clothing she is wearing, but I thought it'd be nice to try to push it a little bit more, since it felt like I was kind of phoning it in this early in. This was kind of before I got a bit burnt out with trying to get this just how I wanted it, so to speak. I also still haven't quite worked out how exactly I want to do all my layering and everything, whether I want to do just one solid base layer for a character and then clip everything based off that layer. And I've been out of practice with art in general for a while. It's just recently that I started trying to actually get back into things and improve. So at best, trying to mess around with things in Procreate has just been kind of an experiment in likely doing things pretty inefficiently, but just trying to find the best way I can do it with the knowledge I have so far. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out so far. I know looking back at this, I am going to end up wanting to make more changes, and I feel like this has also helped spark some ideas and things for me to think about with actually trying to flesh out this character a little bit more. But if nothing else, this is a finished piece that it'd been long overdue. I'd been making doodles of this girl for a while, not really with anything being fully worked out. So if nothing else, I've at least made progress. And sometimes progress is all you can really hope for. Something doesn't have to be all neat and perfect with a bow on it in order for you to actually feel okay about what you're doing. Especially when motivation is an issue, any step in the right direction can be something to be happy about. I do plan to eventually post videos regularly. I just haven't fully figured out what exactly I want to be doing with this channel other than just kind of motivating myself to draw things. I kind of like it in these early stages, where I did just the rough crows and how derpy each of them look. Since it kind of makes sense that they wouldn't be, perfect copies of Shadow himself. He looks a little bit more distinguished than them by comparison. I did decide to go back through and kind of push the contrast a little bit more with the skin coloration, and actually going back through and making those clones of Shadow a bit nicer so that they aren't so very clearly just copy-pasted from essentially all the same rough sketch of a bird. I think one of the things that this ended up teaching me is, as much as I do like birds, I am very much a scrub when it comes to actually trying to draw them. Most of what I've drawn has been humans, with not a lot of inanimate or non-human things being drawn, so that's something I definitely have to work on. But it's not going to stop me from trying anyways. It's all part of the process, just kind of clumsily going along with things that you're not quite sure how to do yet, but you're learning, you're making progress. I did kind of explore with actually applying a darker color to Simone's arms, so that would look more like Shadow actually was occupying that position and granting her extra arms with that. But I didn't quite like the look of it. I haven't quite figured out how I want that visualized exactly. I'm thinking a sort of translucent look to it, kind of like how I did with the birds here. But I didn't want to sit around trying to figure that out for too long when I was already in the stages here of trying to push myself to finishing this. Anyways, that's it for now. If you made it to the end, well, thank you very much, you quarantine cuties, for actually sticking around this long. And if you did enjoy this video, I would appreciate it if you do like, subscribe if you're interested in seeing more of my endeavors into art, or leave a comment as well.